Hello, I'm Alim Jadavji and welcome to this episode of Released Voices, the series dedicated to amplifying underrepresented voices and authentic stories. Today I'm meeting Natalia Campbell, who lost her mother in 2018. Losing a parent is a universal emotional experience, but what happens when you have a fractured relationship with that parent? How do you then deal with the subsequent extra layers of grief? Tell me about your mum and your childhood.
My mum was great. She basically had me out of wedlock, which was a really big thing back in the day. It went against her family, her upbringing, so I think there was definitely shame to that. But she never gave that to me. It was other people, putting that on us. We lived in a Georgian house near Tower Bridge, and my mum, got on with what she was doing. She was very creative. She was a designer. My mum made magic out of nothing with food, with our house, with everything, and she did it on her own, and a real trooper, I would say.
So because it was just you and your mum, do you feel that made your relationship stronger?
Intense. It was intense.
Why? Why was it intense?
Because we did everything together. We looked out for each other. We were always had each other's backs. We were the two musketeers. It was us against the world. We worked out how we could kind of survive, how I could help her, how she could help me. She wanted me to go on every school trip. She never wanted me to go without. So there was love, there was consideration, we could do anything, we could dream whatever we wanted to dream, we could do whatever, and we would do it.
What was life like financially for your mum?
Tough. You would never know. My mum never showed it. My mum did everything she could to make us kind of normal. We'd probably run out of food by Saturday before my mum got money on Monday, and it was a question we'd visit relatives. I mean, this is the 70s. It sounds like Charles Dickens, but, bringing up a child on your own where you're not getting support from your family, you're not getting any support from really anyone. And so my mum did loads of designing, made clothes for people in Bond Street, famous people, got that money, and that made us go on all these things, but it was tough.
So when did things change between you and your mum?
About 14, it started to shape and change, I would say. I was trying to get my independence. I wanted to dress how I wanted to dress. That didn't go down too well. I'm quite strong-willed, so was my mum. I kind of wanted my mum to go, yeah, be your independent spirit, because that's how she brought up. But when it actually started to happen, it didn't go down too well.
Why do you think it happened?
I think maybe mum wanted me to be her little girl always, but you don't know, but I just knew that it wasn't going well, me trying to be independent and have my own way of thinking or my own way of saying things.
And how did you deal with that?
I did the best I could, really. I think it really upped its game when I went to university, the whole thing of leaving the nest. I think my mum was scared that she was going to lose me, but then when she came across over the phone or I'd meet her, instead of being, oh, what are you doing? What are you up to? Tell me about your week. It was more negative. It started to become very toxic. And I noticed that at 14, and her treatment towards me was getting quite severe and really bringing me down.
What sort of things did she say?
Just sort of, I wasn't slim enough, I wasn't going far enough, I wasn't going to reach enough, I wasn't going to be big enough, who was going to fancy me, all of these things. And I was like, wow, where's that come from? It really has a huge effect on your self-esteem. So that really fractured our relationship, I think.
Did things improve when you got older?
No, they got worse. When I met my partner, I think my mum felt it was either him or her. And I think I began to realise that my mum had psychological problems, depression. I then realised she had a personality disorder, and it all started to make sense. I was the brunt of my mum's pain. I was doing things that she wanted to do in her youth that having me, she couldn't do. And so then how that came out was not necessarily, yeah, you're doing it. And she might talk to people about, oh, I'm proud of my daughter and what she's doing. But to me, it was the completely opposite.
Did she ever get any support for that?
I think she had some counselling, but it'd gone too far. You know, only if a person realises what they're doing can they reach out for help. And a lot of people, I'm all right, I don't need anyone.
So with everything that happened, did you still keep in touch?
It got to the stage that it got really, really bad, and I just had to step away for my own mental health. The pain was so intense that I thought even ending wasn't going to use this. Excuse me, I've got something in my eye. And I just thought, I can't, that's not fair. That's not fair on my husband, that's not fair on my friends. Why has that happened?
So when did you eventually reconnect?
I got a call from my uncle. He said, your mum's in hospital. Mum had been in hospital a few times from things, but I knew this was something else. And she had a form of leukemia. We checked it out online, me and my husband, and we kind of said, if you've got this, you've got about 5 years. I went straight to the hospital. I saw the nurse, the head matron, and she took us into a room. And my mum didn't have 5 years. She had possibly 9 months. It was a huge shock. And I think my mum had kind of been told that she was going to die. And I think I didn't realise how bad that was. And we walked into the room and, yeah, my mum was distant, and we tried to start that kind of conversation.
Did you manage to heal the rift?
Ridiculous thing, she got a gallstone caught and they couldn't fix it. So the doctor took me to a room. I thought, here we go, and said, we can't, whatever we do, your mum, we can't put her under a coma. If we do this, her heart won't take it. There's complications. So we're just going to make her feel comfortable, give her tablets to do that, and she's going to pass. I went in, I said, Mum, I love you. She said, I love you, I don't want to leave you. And that was it. She had a nurse come in and ask her if she wanted to say anything to me, and Mum had nothing to say. When we got the call that she was going, we finally got there, didn't know that she had gone, walked into her room, and she had gone.
How did you process that grief?
Excuse me. Well, you do the best you can. You do the best you can. It's a shock. I think when I walked into that room, I felt my mum's energy. I don't know if you believe in that, but the room was alive, and all I kept feeling is forgive everyone, love everyone. And in an instant, I forgave Mum. There was nothing to forgive. My mum was doing the best that she could.
How did you manage to reach that stage of forgiveness?
You get back to fundamentally, my mum was magical and beautiful and kind and funny. That's who she was. That was her soul. Life had given her so many ups and downs and horrendous bumps. The pureness of her was magic. That's why it's easy to forget all the pain. Losing her, in our tradition, I was brought up Greek Orthodox, we'd go to the church every 40 days, you have a memorial. And it was like ripping a plaster. But it was so good to go to this church, to see everyone coming in. And doing that every 40 days, it was horrendous, but it was great because it gave you a chance to go, ugh, and also be surrounded by people who loved her. And for me, just to celebrate her life. Our world is so about living. Live life to the most. Live your best life. Live every second. We don't talk about death. We don't talk about grief. We need to know. We need to talk about it.
How do you process your grief?
Slowly. Crying when I wanted to cry. Exercising, getting out, moving, talking about her, being allowed to, not having to feel like we can't talk about that. Shopping. I suddenly went into life's too short. I want that. I'm going out for dinner. Dinner's on me, everyone. I'm having that dress. How much is it? Don't worry about the price tag. Doing my tax bill, I realised, oh my God, I spent a lot of money. I went a lot on holidays. I needed to feel sun on my bones. I needed to go away, escape.
For anyone watching that can really relate to your story, what would you like to say to them?
Be easy on yourself. People feel that they need to cry, the funeral's done, and let's get on with it. And I think it's afterwards. It's the month afterwards. It's the 4 months afterwards. It's the anniversary. It's her birthday. It's Christmases. It's Mother's Day. You're going to be angry. You're going to be upset. You're going to dread yourself for a while. You're going to hate yourself for a while. You're going to be fed up. You'll need to find an output. There's always counselling if you need it. Speak to someone if you do. Speak to your family. Go on holiday if you can. Go on a walk. And if you did muck up, if you did not do what you should have done, have ownership of it. Say, I could have done that. But then tell that person, we all make mistakes. None of us are perfect. Realise that every relationship you have, you learn. You're a work in progress. Be kind to yourself. Do it day by day.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today.
You're welcome.
Be sure to follow, like and share this video and keep watching for more Released Voices.